back to doing these in the morning. Alright, so, very briefly, Godzilla King of All Monsters. I wanted to talk about this movie a little bit because I had some thoughts, particularly, briefly, review of movie. Movie is fine, unless you're a Godzilla fan, then movie is finer, but that doesn't matter. That's my review of this movie. If you're a fan of the Godzilla films, this is kind of a treat, because you get to see... I think they hit the sweet spot between the monsters looking like the classic monsters, aka guys in rubber suits, and looking like the realistic creatures that CGI is capable of. It's a very nice balance between the two. And I really appreciate it. I am actually a Godzilla fan. Particularly I'm a fan of Ghidorah and Mothra, both of whom are in this film and have prominent roles. Monsters. Anyway, as far as the film goes, the dialogue is kind of goofy in places. It's a little silly. Overall, it's fine. It's not distractingly bad, but it is a little not perfect in places. And as far as its rewatchability, I don't know. I don't plan on seeing it again, and I actually kind of liked it. What I really wanted to talk about, so my review is, odd you'll see it and not like it. Pretty good, honestly. Maybe 1 in 4. Like I said, the dialogue isn't fabulous. The story's a little cringy in a couple places. It doesn't hit that soft spot of making you feel very invested in the characters, which is what it really needs to do. It's okay. And I would hold off on seeing it a second time. Like, I wouldn't go rush out to see it. I might see it again in, like, if it's on Netflix or something like that in a few months, maybe. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Let me emphasize for what I'm about to say that I liked this film. Like, I really enjoyed it. I liked seeing the Godzilla stuff, like seeing the Ghidorah, Mothra, and a couple others, Rodan, and the new ones were interesting. Like, I was curious about some of them. But this movie's not gonna... This is the third entry into the Monsterverse. There's going to be one more because it's already been shot. That'll be next year, Godzilla vs. King Kong. And I think that's going to be it. These movies aren't generating enough interest to... I've said this before, it's an interesting discussion, I think, is that these movies could pull off what they need to pull off, but not at the budget that they're given. This is not a $150 million movie. And they can't even afford that. This movie is 5 years after the 2014 Godzilla film. I barely remember stuff that happened in that film, and I saw that movie in the movie theater. It's like I actually went out and saw it, and didn't wait for it to come out on digital. But, like, I forgot about Bryan Cranston's character. I forgot about the entire plot of it, almost. It's like, oh yeah, there was Godzilla and some other monster. No, there were multiple monsters. They were just the same kind of monster. It's like... The first movie didn't generate enough interest. It wasn't so thrilling that I was like, oh wow, I gotta see the sequel. And I was barely aware that King Kong was in the same Monsterverse. So I didn't even see that in the theater. I'm kind of curious to see it. I might see it on digital. But other than that, 5 years apart. 5 years. I've seen like 10 MCU movies in between these two Godzilla films. That's too much space. That's not gonna fly. The next Monsterverse movie, I'm predicting that will be the last movie in the Monsterverse, unless they find a way to make these a lot faster and a lot cheaper. There's no way. There's just no way. There isn't the interest. They're not that good. They're fine. Like I said before, they're fine unless you like the Godzilla movies, and they're finer, but they're not all that. It's really cool to see these monsters in CGI. They look great. There are scenes in this film. Let me emphasize, there are scenes in this film that look amazing. Speaking of monsters, uh, like I really appreciate like the visuals in this. It looked great. The the very necessary story with the family, I could give or take. It was okay. But that's really all I wanted to say about this. It's like it's a fine film, but there's no way they're going to pull this off as a long term. This is not going to be a mega franchise vis-a-vis the MCU. No way. They can't sustain it. It's too expensive for what they're doing. They want to do it in the style of Marvel, which is say they want to spend $150 million and they want to make $1 billion a film. Not going to happen. There's no way. That is fiction. That's fantasy. It's like a monster movie, which is a shame. I hope they can figure out some way to make this work. Like I said, the larger scope of the movie, if I'm being vague, no spoilers in this, but there's I think at one point in the movie they mention there are 17 monsters. And they give them all names, and a lot of them are new names. Like they're new names for new monsters. One of which was Methuselah, which I actually looked up. I was like, which one was that? And it's a monster we saw for like 10 seconds. But I'm like, oh, I'm kind of interested there. Like, what do you have going for these other monsters? What's the idea? What's the plan? Let's show off this new stuff. And that would be cool, but unless they can do it on the less expensive, on a mere $100 million, then this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to be an ongoing thing. I think this Monsterverse is going to die next year with King Kong versus Godzilla, which is a shame. Alright, that's really all I had to say. I think that's it. I'm out.